All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome you to this episode of Niche or Die. Have the pleasure of having Blake Mallen on. Now, I'm gonna say this, and you gotta let me know if I'm the first person that's ever said this. You know, with what you've accomplished, man, you're literally a real life Tony Stark.
Tony Stark. Hey,
Seriously.
I'm an Iron Man fan, so I'll let you go with it. Where are you going with that one?
Seriously, man. I mean, he didn't have the superpowers, but he was smart, man. He was a genius. He was witty. He had all this charm, man. People loved him, and his goal was to make the world a better place, man. And so, dude, I don't care what nobody say, man. You're my opportunity to get a chance to experience the real life Tony Stark.
I love it. Come on, I appreciate it. I wouldn't put me in that category, but I'll take the compliment. I love Iron Man. I love that character, and I'm just like you, just an entrepreneur, super passionate about what I do, want to make a difference and do all I can. So excited about our conversation, and respect to you, brother. I know we don't really have a big prior relationship. I know we've been connected on social. You're putting out great messages, great content, and you reached out, and I admire the tenacity. I admire entrepreneurs willing to go out there and ask, and just love your energy and, love the message. So happy to spend some time today, and I'm glad we're able to connect. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I appreciate that. So, I want to dive in and just talk about, niche. It's typically three things that I've noticed that, entrepreneurs that affect an entrepreneur making a decision on choosing a certain niche. One is, a certain set of skills that they currently have or skills that they can go learn. Number two is having some type of understanding of a particular industry, not going in completely blind. And number three, which I feel like is the most important of all of them, is recognizing the desires and the needs of the market. And so, is that something that does that resonate with you in terms of when you first got your start, or was it a little bit different?
I love it. Let's go down that path. I mean, you're wearing a niche or die hat, so we got to go down the path of niche. So, it's interesting. The topic of niche obviously is really relevant right now. I feel like in the last few years, when it comes to social media strategy and everybody trying to break through the noise and get their voice heard, right? I mean, the brilliant thing about the time we live in is we have access to literally everyone on the planet with a few clicks. Like the baseline or access, right, that an average person has today is unprecedented in human history. And that's phenomenal. It creates huge opportunity. It allows anybody with the desire and the willingness to go after it to be able to really be heard. So there's a lot of massive upside, Kamar, on that. But with that also comes a lot of noise, right? It also comes a lot of competition. It also comes, I mean, I don't know what the stats are today of how many pieces of new content are being created every single second on all of the platforms. But I mean, it's absolutely insane. Like, where's it all going? So the conversation around niche as a way to break through, at least from what I've been hearing and studying in the content space, social strategy space, entrepreneurship space, has been one that's super relevant. I probably have a different opinion than maybe some of the conversations you've had in the past. So when you ask that question directly, okay, well, let's talk about niche. And is it something that you think is needed or relevant for an entrepreneur today? My brain goes in two places, right? So the first place is like a purely strategic, economic strategy. And I think you can do that. I think entrepreneurs are doing that successfully. I was talking to someone last week, and I forget who I was having the conversation with. And they had just come back from like a mastermind, like a bunch of entrepreneurs getting together, sharing best practices. And there was this really successful entrepreneur in the room that was killing it on Amazon because he owned the number 1, 2, and 3 buy boxes on Amazon for the little things that you stick in your coffee to make it frothy. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the little things like you stick in your coffee, like turn it on and it like frosts your coffee like an automatic stir. Do you understand what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I just sat there, I go, what a world we live in. I mean, this guy had tens of millions of dollars in revenue. That was his main business, killing it as an entrepreneur, because he was the number 1 buy box and 2 and 3 on Amazon for coffee frothers or whatever those are. And that blows my mind. And that's just an example top of mind from a conversation I recently had. But there's that everywhere, right? There's an audience for everything. There's people searching for everything. So I think on one side, to answer your question, finding a niche, targeting a niche, solving a problem for a specific audience, no matter how crazy or off the wall it might be, I think is, yes, a smart strategy. But come on, my personal opinion, so to answer your question more directly, was that the path that I took as an entrepreneur? No. Is that the path that I'm on as an entrepreneur today? No. Is that the decision factor I approach my businesses or my ventures or my investments on let's just go something that makes sense strategically or economically? For me, the answer is no. And I want to make sure I'm not misunderstood. For many, it is, and it works, and it can work for anybody listening to this. But for me personally, I'm been built in a way that I don't know about you, but I have to believe in what I'm doing. I have to be passionate about what I'm doing. I got to feel like what I'm doing is making a difference beyond me. And if it's more just doing it for an economic result, right, or an outcome, I may get the outcome, but I don't get the fulfillment. Like I don't get the feeling. I don't get the alive factor that I think why a lot of people become an entrepreneur. It's not just the numbers in a bank account. It's the feeling of fulfillment, right? It's the feeling of living. And that's probably why you do what you do and why we're having this conversation. So long-winded answer to your question. I think niche is a smart strategy. I think you can look at it purely from how do you dominate a space and serve a market? But for me, it's always been something greater. It's how do you do that in a direction that's more in alignment with what taps into, I call it you're meant to. And it's just a term that I use. And what I mean by you're meant to is like what you're meant to do, who you're meant to be. So I don't know if that answers your question. I guess those are the 2 thoughts that instantly come to my mind when we have the niche conversation. Super relevant. I know people that have success purely looking at it like a strategy, but for me, it's got to be about something more. It's about finding that intersection of you're meant to that also meets the needs and you can become successful. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yes, absolutely. It does. It does. So let me ask, I was introduced to you through the network marketing space. That's when I first heard your name. That's when I first, start, having a chance to follow your journey. What led you to, not now. So for those of you who are watching, most of us, we know someone who has been involved in network marketing. Most of us know someone that has had a lot of success in network marketing, being, top earners, standing up on the stage, sharing their journey. This gentleman actually, founded a network marketing company, which is, I have so much admiration and respect because, that industry, that profession is a huge blessing to me and my family and a lot of friends in my inner circle. And so I want to ask you about that. What led you to, planting your flag in that space?
Yeah. Well, what led me to it was an AOL instant message. Do you remember? Are you old enough to know AOL instant message? Come on, you remember this?
Absolutely.
This is where I'm going to date myself. I just woke up yesterday and welcomed 41. So yesterday was my 41st birthday, 2/2/22, which kind of a cool date. I think it's going to be an awesome year. Hey, and numbers aligned. Numbers aligned. So I date myself here, and I know maybe some of the audience that listens to this might not remember AOL IM. But yeah, I all seriousness, Kamar, it was literally that. I was a freshman in college, going to school at UCSD, UC San Diego. no entrepreneurial upbringing at all, never an idea, not even a thought. I'm the son of a really public service parents. My mom was an educator, so a teacher, counselor, and principal, so academic, and my father, lifelong law enforcement.
Okay.
So, very, very traditional upbringing. So the concept of like business, entrepreneurship was totally novel. And was sitting in my dorm room late one night, got an AOL instant message from not even a close friend, an old high school acquaintance. They literally said, "Hey, you want to make some extra money?" And I said, "Sure." Literally, that was my reply. He said, show up here tomorrow at this time." I said, "Okay." In hindsight, it's crazy because this was like late at night on a college campus, and what he was talking about could have meant a million things.
Yeah.
But literally, that was the conversation, like verbatim, that introduced me to the industry. And funny story. I didn't understand network marketing, never seen it, didn't know the concept, but I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to see, so I didn't want to go by myself. So I ended up like right before just going through my dorm room floor and like getting a whole group of people to come to this thing with me with no context. So I walked into my first meeting with like a group of people, like a dozen people. And everybody's like, "Who's this guy that walked in with all these people?" And they thought I was someone special because I showed up with all these people to my first meeting. I had no idea. Like it was something you were supposed to share. And anyway, so yeah, 21 years ago, that was my step into the industry. And haven't looked back since. I fell in love with the development aspect, the growth, the education, first and foremost. It was the first space that introduced me to like a whole new type of education, like personal growth, financial literacy, like personal development, emotional intelligence, leadership. Like none of that stuff I got in my upbringing, in my school, in my college. So I fell in love with the education. And it's that old story, like you can only surround yourself with the right people for so long before you become like them. And I just started shifting my environment, hanging out and spending my weekends with people that were aspiring for better, growing themselves. And ended up doing really well in the industry. Fast forward, started a company with a couple partners back in 2005. Built that for amazing long haul. Did a couple billion in sales. At one time was the largest weight loss and fitness platform in North America. Sold to a public company, took the brand global, built it across Europe, had a chance to travel, see amazing places, create new adventures. Like literally the industry took me around the world and created experiences I never thought I'd have at my age. And then we ended up actually merging the brand with a bigger company, a company called Prove It, where I'm acting president today, and still on the same journey that that AOL instant message opened the door to 21 years ago. Like literally still on the same journey, different experience, right? Different perspective, different vision today, but same path. So, short answer, long answer, love the industry. Love what it can do for people and their development at the baseline. And obviously, if you put the right energy and resilience into it, it can become extremely lucrative. And I love the impact that it can make. And Kamar, I'm really excited about where the industry is going. I was on a call yesterday with it was DSN, Direct Selling News, which is kind of the industry voice. And it was a private call of just CEOs and C-level execs for companies that are all doing at least 50 million a year and above. Most of them are 100 million, plus companies. Really small private Zoom yesterday. And it was a candid conversation just on state of the industry and where the industry is going. And it was inspiring just to see, we use the term network marketing, MLM, affiliate marketing, direct sales, social selling, all these different terms. What's exciting today is you really have a evolution of a bunch of different ideas colliding to like a new model. You got this proven, tried and true network marketing, direct sales structure that's built billions of dollars in companies and success, colliding today with social selling and social media tools and influencer marketing and the rate at which connections we're able to share online, like the platforms of today. And what's interesting is you got big mainstream brands, like massive retail brands now kind of like acquiring and merging and mixing models. And it's cool to see the future of business today really becoming these kind of omni-channel transitional brands where it's no longer like one of those things or stuck in a sandbox. it really is a way of the future for people to share things they love with others in a thriving gig economy, side hustle economy, where now more than ever, especially in a post-pandemic world, people need things remote, right? And need things that are versatile in recession or crisis or COVID proof. And all this mix of stuff kind of colliding together to create something that's new. Like, it's not even the same animal anymore. And that's what I'm most excited about, is not just evolving as myself as an entrepreneur, but watching the whole category evolve, really to something that when I got started was like taboo. Like, everybody thought it was an Amway thing, to today, you see like the biggest mainstream brands going omnichannel and colliding with really the future of today's platform. So I'm a fan, I'm an advocate, and I'm excited about, where everything's going.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, that goes back, how important is influence, to an entrepreneur? Because, you gave the story about, you didn't know where you were going. You didn't know what you were about to see. The people that you invited from your dorm, they showed up, no idea what they were about to see. That you probably, I don't know, did you realize at that moment, did you connect that and understand that there was something that you had done previously in those relationships? I can't say if it was business, academic, sports. I don't know what it was, but you stood as someone that people respected, they trusted. And is it safe to say that you had some level of influence? I mean, because think about it, just to pick up and go follow someone somewhere, and you don't know what you're about to see. They don't even know, they can't give you any details. And you showed up, and and you probably, that was the beginning of you impacting their lives without them even realizing it. How important is influence to an up and coming entrepreneur?
Kumar, it's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that, and I've actually never thought about influence through my eyes at that point in time. Because my instant reaction would be, I wasn't a person of influence. I was a freaking freshman in college. I was a surfer kid. I was, I had bleached hair half the time, right? I mean, like I was not what you would think is a stereotypical like person of influence. I'm not the life of the party, the frat guy. I'm not any of that. But I guess you're right. You got to have some level of influence for people to listen. But I think I would exchange the word influence, because influence today can mean so many different things and have so many misperceptions. I look at it like this. I was excited. I was enthusiastic. My intentions, I can't say they're always right, but I can say I always do my best to make sure my intentions are coming from the right place. And if there is one thing, maybe you could trace my track record as an entrepreneur, founder, exec, all the ventures. I would hope, like, if there's one through line, one like describe Blake Mallen, one, hey, you've worked with them. I would hope that one of the first things that would come to people's minds is they would say, you know what, I never questioned his intention. His intention was always for the greater good. It wasn't just for me. I think about the whole, like, so I think those things, right? When you approach something with the right intention, it's not about like you or an ego move or a greed move, or it's not about, raising yourself up at the detriment of others going down, like we see so much in business sometimes. And you combine like a true intention with a real enthusiasm, just like an enthusiasm and excitement, right? You can call it a passion. I love the word energy. Kumar, matter of fact, so every year on my birthday, I digress. My birthday is like my New Year's, right? I know a lot of people, when they go through a new year, they have a process of reflection and review and goal setting. I'm sure you do that as an entrepreneur and an achiever. So I do that on my birthday. I've done it on my birthday for decades, right? So February 2nd is like my New Year's. And I go through this process that I've kind of just found works for me. But one of the things I go through is I define like a theme for the year. And my theme for the year, I actually have it right here to remind me on a little bracelet, is the word energy, right? So my theme for this year is energy. And I digress with that story because you can call it enthusiasm, excitement, passion. to me, it's an energy, right? So if you have the right intention and you're doing things that aren't just for you, but really for the greater good and really from a purpose of giving or serving, and you do it with a whatever word you want to choose, enthusiasm, excitement, passion, right? An aliveness, I call it an energy, you're going to influence. You're going to influence, right? That is influence. Like, yeah, influence is okay. I have a million followers on Instagram. Check, right? Oh, I got a blue check mark. Cool. Hey, I got a cool title. Great. Hey, I'm the boss. All that stuff, guys, that is influence in various forms. And there's different ways to influence people, but for me, the most raw, real influence is when people can feel you're doing something for the right reason and it's something you really are conveying energy around. You will move people. People follow people following their passion. People follow people that give off that type of frequency or energy. Doesn't matter who you are, what age you are, what title you have, what your background is, what you've done before, doesn't matter. You want to influence someone today to move in a direction, combine those two things, my opinion, and watch the response that you get. So answer to your question, I guess I had influence, otherwise people wouldn't have shown up, but not for any of the reasons or anything that I did. I think it's just because I always try to do things for the right reasons and the right intention. And I always, do something I believe in, I'm excited about, I'm passionate about. I think that conveys an energy that people attract to. And the cool thing about that is anybody can do that. I don't care who listens to this or what stage in your life. I don't care if you've never climbed the mountain or you just fell off a freaking far mountain. I've been there. Doesn't matter what the scoreboard is today. You can go move people if you're doing it with the right reasons and you're doing it with the right energy, regardless of where you're at today. So does influence matter? I'd be lying if I said if it doesn't. You got to move people, right, to create something. But do you have to have any prerequisite, any sort of accolade to have influence? No, not in my opinion. In my opinion, it's more of an energy thing, and anybody at any time can create that, if that makes sense.
Man, that is so refreshing because I wish that the 21-year-old version of myself could have heard that, because that's how old I was when I first officially got introduced to network marketing and entrepreneurship. And it was always said that you need influence, and it was almost like this ladder that you had to climb. It was these accolades that you had to get. And it was discouraging because, I'm looking at, people 10, 15 years older, and they were telling me this. And so that's where the personal development. So in hindsight, it was cool because that's what made me hungry for personal development. The downside to that, and I'm glad you cleared that up. Honestly, that's the best explanation I've ever heard of influence, man. And I've heard that explanation, presented by some of the best. Dude, that is the best I've ever heard, because you're right. It gives a brand new person with no credentials, no current following. It gives them a chance because, that doesn't, just because they haven't acquired those credentials or that a huge following on social media, or because they haven't been brought to the front of the room and someone passed them the sword or the torch. They have some idea of a way where they can impact other people, and they're excited about it, and they're passionate, and they have that energy. Based on what you just said, and I think a lot of people will agree, man, that gives anybody a chance, a fair shot, So, man, I appreciate you breaking it down like that. Seriously.
Hey, it's a great question. I've never been asked that before, but that's just me looking back. I'll take the right intention and the right energy right over anything else, because you combine those two things long enough, right? And you got to stay consistent. You got to put in the work. It's not an overnight thing, but you combine that with consistency, you're going to build the accolades. You're going to build the following. You're going to move the people, right? It's not the other way around. So I think it starts there.
So what was your inspiration for, getting into health and wellness?
Oh man, a disaster. I mean, I laugh at it now, but it wasn't intentional. It wasn't me picking a niche. That's for sure. That company I went and saw for the first time, that meeting out of my dorm room, was a telecom company. So this was like late 90s, early 2000s. There was a big deregulation of a telecom industry, created this bubble of opportunity. And you're going to laugh at this, Kumar, but this was like when people were being able to choose their long distance phone service in their home phone, which is like crazy today. Like, I bet half the people listening don't even have a home phone, let alone think about paying for long distance. But that was the window. And 5 years, built to the top of that company as a representative, a sales distributor, and then got the phone call that nobody ever wants to get from the owner. Said, company's been struggling. We're out of money. Investors are done funding. Leaders are leaving. We're shutting our doors.
Wow.
And for me, like, I thought I was done. I'd spent 5 years of my life, right? Which doesn't sound like a lot today, but when those 5 years are like, age 19, 20, 21, like that's like a quarter of your life, right? That's like your entire adult life. I thought I was done. I was young, naive, probably too arrogant, thought I was retired. And then through a single phone call, like, it's gone. But it was through what ended up being those ashes of a failed company that myself and my business partners ended up acquiring the assets initially to try to keep the company open. Again, young bravado, right? We'll run the company and run the sales. We'll do it all. I mean, just bravado, ego, arrogance. But all of that came together and we did that. We realized it was broken. The model wasn't going to work. We met a brilliant doctor and spent his life on a product. And we said, we could sell this. We could do it. It didn't make any sense. We had no experience in health nutrition. It was an anti-aging product. We were in our early 20s. Made zero sense, right? I mean, it was a premium, supplement. We were marketing to college kids that were broke. Like, if you were to pencil it out on paper, this is not a business plan you would invest in. Oh, and the only work experience I had was a high school pool lifeguard. And my business partner, Nick, he worked at TGI Fridays. He was the guy that wore flair, right? Like, that was our resume. You would not have bet on us. But, again, it goes back, brother, that when the intention is right and you just refuse to stop until, the odds don't matter. The odds don't matter. And every success story you study will affirm that, because the odds you'd never bet on, right? But every great story, it's you do things with the right reasons, the right intention, and you just freaking go regardless of what comes your way. And you find, with a little bit of wisdom, looking backward, that some of the greatest disasters end up becoming the greatest opportunities, right? When the doors are slamming in your face, sometimes it's because the world is saying, yo, that path isn't meant for you. You're meant to go over here. Sometimes when you think everything is falling apart, you keep going and you realize, man, you know what? It's falling back together. And, when you're in the moment, it's hard to keep that perspective. But when you've been through enough of them, you start to build the mindset that, wow, through the challenge is the reward, right? Ryan Holiday says the obstacle is the way, right? All of those are the way through. And at least in my experience, it's been my story. So that was where it started. And yeah, here we are 21 years later and I've built a couple $1 billion brands in the health space. So it's crazy.
And that is so, going back into that, because you always mention, every move that you made involved other people. How important is it to not be a solopreneur? And I'll say this, even for those who are watching, a lot of very successful solopreneurs. They're doing it all on their own, and I take my hat off to those individuals. But scaling it, I mean, $1 billion brands, that don't happen alone. How soon did you realize that you were able to connect with other like-minded people and utilize each other's strengths and take it to another level?
No, it's a great question. I think I've always been more of a team player, Kumar, and it's not, and I say that not out of confidence, probably out of insecurity, right? I've always wanted to be a part of a team, probably because when I was young, I didn't have the confidence to think I could even do it by myself. So it probably started with hey, we're stronger together mentality. I played sports growing up. And it's all a cliche, but it's true. Like 1 + 1 = 11, right? You're stronger in a team. So I think that's probably where it just started, but through experience, you start to learn the value of it's not just about people or partners, but the right people and the right partners. Because for every great partnership or success story collaboration, you have all the failures, right? Because of maybe people and relationships or dynamics that weren't the right mix. And it's hard. Like if anybody says working together and creating something with different personalities and convictions is easy, they are a liar, right? I mean, it takes work and the right combination, the right alignment. In my experience, I've found that it takes alignment in a vision, a alignment on values, which is probably one that's often really overlooked and underrated and underestimated, and a diversity in skill. And what I mean by that is you got to have a vision, a collective unified vision that everybody equally believes in. Because if you're not all rowing the same direction, you're all rowing different directions, and it's never going to work, right? So there's got to be a unified vision. There's got to be common values. And this is one that people probably don't talk enough of. But when you hear about the things that don't work out, you get to the core of the foundation, the DNA, what the hell happened? They had a values conflict. They stood for different things. They were different personalities or types of people. And you can't build a strong, successful relationship in anything without alignment on values. And, I'm not going to digress on like the personal side, but, same thing for your loved ones, your spouse, right? Your family. Like you got to have alignment and values. I married my high school sweetheart. We've been together. I think this will be 24 years.
Wow.
We've been together through everything. Right. And it's one of those crazy stories. And I think one of the reasons we've been together for so long is we've always had alignment and a value system. Right. But that's just not on a personal life. Same thing's been true of my business partnership. We always had an alignment on a value system. And whenever there was conflict or things that didn't work as intended, at the core, it usually came down to not a same vision. It's easier to be aligned on the same vision, but different values or separating values or people fracturing values. So I think you got to make sure whoever you're working with, you got alignment. You got to do a real gut check, right? And you'd rather cut the tie now, walk away now, realize it's not going to work now before you have something bigger with more collateral damage later. And then lastly is not alignment, but diversity in skills. And that's important. We would always say, like, in my business with Vi, we had 3 of us that founded the company. And we'd always say that if we all knew and had the same skill, right, then 2 of us wasn't needed. And that's the reality. Like, it's just the truth. Like we would divide and conquer. So you got to have complementary skill sets, people that bring different things to the table. And I'll give one more layer to that. Not only complementary, so you can cover the spread, you can cover the gap, you can carry the weight, but you better mutually respect each other's skill. Mm-hmm. And that takes growth, because sometimes you expect everybody to be like you. And when someone's not as good at the same thing that you are, maybe you look down on them, as opposed to maybe having the awareness that, there might be things that you do better than everybody else, but there's things everybody else does better than you. And as soon as you can realize that everybody has unique talents and gifts and strengths, I know they may be different, everybody has their own. Now you can have a mutual respect and start to leverage each other's strengths, build each other up, cover each other's gaps, right? Cover each other's blind spots, and really play like a team to create something greater than anybody could do on their own. Because all of us really is always greater than any one of us, if you're rowing the same direction with the same values and respect each other's uniqueness along the way. So that'd be my kind of quick thoughts on the dynamic of partnership. And obviously even solopreneurs, doesn't matter if it's just you, it's never just you. The concept of business is creating something that adds value to others. So at the end of the day, even if you're the solopreneur on the entity, on the bank account, well, it still involves others. You're creating something that's going to contribute some way to someone, right? So at the end of the day, that is the nature of business. The value you create will be, the impact you make will be the income you generate, right? So, it's never about us, no matter how much maybe we think it is sometimes.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, let me ask this. I realized, and I shared this with you earlier, there's certain things I don't know. Matter of fact, there's a lot that I don't know. And I want to do this, for the viewers, what is it that you see, with your experience that I should be asking you right now that would serve up and coming entrepreneurs, existing entrepreneurs, regardless of their skill level, their experience? What advice would you share that's relevant today?
It's a good question. So any entrepreneur, new entrepreneur, big entrepreneur, piece of advice in hindsight, that's the question?
That's right.
Okay, it's a good one.
If you were sitting in my seat and you could ask you the best question.
I have 3 thoughts, right? So 3 thoughts that come to mind. First one would be screw supposed to. And what I mean by that is I spent way too much of my life constantly doing what I thought I was supposed to do. And I think too many people fall into the supposed to trap. You're trying to do this because that's how you're supposed to be a good son, or supposed to be a good student, or supposed to be a good employee, or supposed to be a good dad, or supposed to be a good spouse, or supposed to, which is constantly trying to live up to an expectation. And by definition, if you're chasing other people's expectation of you, you are going farther and farther away from what I referenced earlier, like you're meant to, like who you really are and what you're really meant to do. Said more simply, Kamar, is easier said than done, but forget what other people think. Forget trying to people please. Forget trying to make everybody happy. Forget trying to fit into the box that everybody around you thinks you should fit in. Screw supposed to. And you'll never get to your potential, my opinion. And you'll never, ever, even if you get money in a bank and success by monetary terms, you'll never get to fulfillment, which I think is another level, happiness, which I think is what you really want, trying to be who others want you to be. So easier said than done, but entrepreneurs out there, hey, especially when you go against the grain, that's what the definition of entrepreneurship is. You're outside the box, and you're going to have, whether it's somebody, whether it's your parents, whether it's your teachers, whether it's your coworkers, whether it's your friends, whether it's your current peer group, they're going to tell you you're crazy. They're going to try to put you back in. Screw supposed to. You do you. So that would be the first thing that comes to my mind. The second thing that comes to my mind would be who you are is not defined by what you've done. Who you are is defined by what you've overcome.
Wow.
And that one took me a long time to get, because I'm an achiever, right? You're probably an achiever. I bet people listening to this, there's a lot of achievers out there, and the achiever nature is go. The minute we got one trophy, we forgot about it. We're on to the next. We climbed that mountain. It wasn't high enough. What's the higher one? Like, we're always in this nature of like achievement, and it's never enough. And if you stay in that lane too long, you start to associate your own identity, your own self-worth, like your own self-love with what you've done or what you've achieved, which is dangerous, because guys, there's nobody that wins every game for life. Like ever. Like, I've had some great streaks, like some back to back championship teams, like, but I've also had some horrible seasons, like loss after loss after loss after loss. And I've been on both sides of it, right? So you don't get this when you're on the way up. You only get this after you fall a few times and get back up, where you start to realize that, it's not about the achievement. The achievement doesn't do anything. It's actually what you've overcome. It's actually the shit you came through. It's actually when you got knocked down and tested and kicked and didn't think you could get up, but you did. It's actually the falls, right? I say the value's in the valley, not the mountaintop. It's that stuff that actually makes who you are. Because if you're honest with yourself, that's where you actually grow. You don't grow on the victory. The victory is fun. You grow in the valley, right? And that's where you develop a strength and a character and a fortitude and a resilience. And that's where you figure out who you're at. But we have this society that praises and celebrates the achievement, where we really should be praising and celebrating all the shit that people have been through. And I say that now because the last 2 years, it's a lot of shit. We've had to overcome as a human population stuff. And I feel like a lot of people are just down right now, measuring their self-worth on the scoreboard, measuring their self-worth on their bank account, measuring their self-worth on the results at the end of the month. And you guys, you can't measure your self-worth on the scoreboard in a moment in time. Measure your self-worth on how far you've come, who you are today versus where you were a year ago, what you've learned along the way. That's who you are. And that shift, Kamara, it comes with experience. It comes with wounds. It comes with being kicked. But then you realize, man, that's the stuff that makes you. So I would say, entrepreneurs out there, you're overcoming. Look at where you are. You have gotten through 100% of the shit that's been thrown in front of you. That's a pretty darn good score. Pay attention to that scoreboard and measure your self-worth and your value and your potential based on that, not based on the trophies. And then the last one would be probably just one of opportunity. That right now, today, I believe it is I don't want to make it seem like positive, because what the world has gone through, I don't want to devalue or minimize. We've lost a lot of people. We've lost a lot of loved ones. We've lost a lot of great companies. There has been real damage and trauma the last couple of years. So I don't want to minimize it. It's not all a rose-colored picture. But in that, like I said earlier, the challenge is the way to the reward. The obstacle is the way. I think right now the glass has cracked on a structure that was broken and needed to change. And that creates a huge opportunity right now for a greatest shift in all of our lifetimes. Right now, there's a greater need, Kamar, than ever before. There's a greater need for solutions, a greater need for income, a greater need for innovation, a greater need for creativity, there's a greater need from people, AKA in business terms, a greater demand in the market, which means there's greater opportunity than ever before in our life. So to entrepreneurs out there, maybe that'd be my message, Kamar, those things. Screw supposed to. Do you. Pursue your meant to. Don't define you by what you've done. Define yourself by what you've overcome, and applaud and honor yourself. It's been a lot. And understand right now, in the midst of turmoil, is the greatest opportunity. Go create, go innovate, go. If you need to make the leap, now's the time. If you're already in a lane, run faster. If you're already going, think bigger, right? Now's the time to mobilize, because I think the next generation of true wealth cast out, 3, 4, 5 years are the people that are solving today's problems, which are more than ever before. So those would be my 3 thoughts or a message in hindsight to any entrepreneurs out there.
Dude, I appreciate you so much for sharing that and letting us tap into your brain for that, man. That was incredible. If I didn't suck at multitasking, dude, I've already thought about 10 or 15 people that I need to text that to. Seriously, man. Seriously. That was and I mean, and I needed to hear that just as much as the people that I'm going to share that with. And I'm excited, man, to get this interview out, because I mean, the entire this whole conversation was amazing. But man, those last 5 minutes, man, dude, that's gonna free up a lot of people. That's gonna free up a lot of people, man. And I appreciate, I applaud you for going through those fires, learning those experiences, and just being open enough to sharing that with us, man. So I definitely appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. Enjoyed the conversation, and keep being a light, brother. Your message is heard. The world needs positive energy, and you're putting it out there. So thanks for the opportunity. It was fun.
Been my pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, Blake Mallen, the billion-dollar lifestyle man. But, you know, if you're watching this, you know by now he's the real life Tony Stark. All right. It's been a pleasure, brother. See you next time.